So, in setting up my own segue in the cheekiest way a host can ever do, we've now discussing the women try. We've got one of the biggest names in women's rugby at the moment on the pod. We've got to talk about the Six Nations. How are you enjoying it? This is a good competition this year, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's a great competition. For the next couple of years, I think you're going to obviously see the Red Roses out on top. The England-France game will be a bit like a final, as it has been in the past, and it has been in previous autumn internationals, and that's great. But I think what's really interesting is the middle of the table, seeing Wales perform the way they have, and that kind of extra 10, 12 minutes they have in them just from the professionalisation of the game. And I think you can directly attribute the win over Ireland to having the extra legs, having the extra practice, having 12 professional players and 12 part-time players. That's a huge step. And if you just think that gave them that extra 10 minutes against Ireland, what it can do for them in the future, after just a couple of months, you're showing the edge. And I think it's going to put some pressure on other unions who haven't made that step yet and who haven't made that consideration and who don't necessarily think it's the right thing to do. That's their choice. I think they're wrong, but that's their choice. I'm not in charge. But you can clearly see who's out on top. And unfortunately now there is no hiding the investment and the professionalisation of the game is making a real difference. So if other unions want to be part of that and want to continue to stay as tier one nations, they are going to have to invest in the women's game. But without going down that segue too early on, I think the championship's looking incredible this year, and it's Fantasy League, I think, is a stroke of genius. They finally properly got that up and running, and it makes a real difference. I'm learning so much more about players across the teams, and also, very honest, I'm learning a lot more about forwards because I know the backs because I am one, and I know what they do. I don't really know what goes on in a scrum. It confuses the hell out of me, and I've tried to avoid knowing anything about it for the last 10 years, but it is helping me learn a lot more about the forward pack and who they are and what they do, and actually all the nations as well. So I think that alone is a huge growth for the game and some knowledge of the game for people coming in. Now, I only started playing it a couple of years ago, and I'm completely dedicated to it every year now. So,
Are you on about the fantasy now? I thought you meant you started.
yes,
Yeah, no.
sorry.
Are you in Jess Hayden's league?
I am, yes.
Yeah, I am getting stomped in that, and I
Are
thought
you?
I would.
Go on, where are you?
I was. I want to say I managed to hit the top 100s, but I think I got chucked back out of it because, like you said, I was learning a lot more about other players, and the one advice I'll give anybody is get Jade Conkle in your back row, because a Scotland player that is just goes one way, and that is forwards, and it's just easy points for gain line success.
It's true. Yeah. I think there's Oh, look, there you go. I'm 10th at the moment.
All right, settle down.
in Jess Hayden's league. I didn't do that well on the first weekend. I did all right last weekend.
I did
Anyone who
trash on the
had
first.
Lydia Thompson as their captain
Yeah.
definitely won the round, that's for sure. And anyone who had Marley Packer as their captain the round before definitely won that round. But yeah, sorry, I digress. I got excited.
I love fantasy, whether it's American football, women's rugby, men's rugby, anything. You pick. If you make a fantasy league and I see it on Twitter, I'll join it if it's a public league. I don't have to know anything about the sport. I don't. And then you like you said, you realize about so many players. Like I wasn't that familiar with Sansus, the French nine. And then I think Squidge made the best comment in the world, going, "It's mental that Toulouse have the best nine in world rugby, and she plays for the women's team because they've got
it's true. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the women's. We just had groundbreaking. We had groundbreaking. How would you call it? Groundbreaking. What's the word? Attendance records. That's what we got. Yeah, the biggest one in Wales. How was that to see across? Because that was getting some good press as well, and it was nice to see. It was nice to see the amount of young fans that were there as well when the TV cameras were doing the pans.
Yeah, definitely. There's record-breaking weekends every weekend at the moment, which is obviously incredible to see. And whilst the women's game's on the rise, I think we're going to keep seeing that for a little while now. We've got 11,000 fans this weekend booked in for England v Wales. We've got 11,000 fans for the England-France game in France, in Toulouse, I think that is. Those numbers you rarely see in the women's game at the moment. And to have those sort of pre-done, knowing that those tickets are sold, and knowing that everyone who can buy a ticket has bought a ticket. That's incredible. So hopefully that'll carry through and is really positive, looking forward to 2025. And hopefully when England are hosting the World Cup here, we might have a full Twickenham stadium.
I definitely think it's on the cards if everything's going the way it's going. But no, I read just before we came on here to finish off the podcast, I think they've only got, for the England game, the one at Gloucester, I think they've only got, is it 500 tickets left to sell? And they're predicting a sellout because it's something to do with like the amount of tickets that were purchased within the last 24 hours. Which
one's that for?
It's the one, what's the one that's at Gloucester?
Yeah, England-Wales.
That's the one, yeah.
This weekend, yeah. So the 11,000 tickets are sold already, by the, which I think is a sellout.